In the last video, we reminded ourselves of the definition of the sine, cosine, and tangent of angles in a right triangle. And what I want to do is introduce to you, if you've never seen it before, the three secondary trig functions. There are actually, well, there are more than 6 trig functions in all, actually. There are dozens of them, but there are only 6 that have kind of survived to modern times. And if you have not seen these before, it's because really only 3 have survived to modern times, but there are more that were useful in the past 100 years. And we still use them for various reasons. And so you'll want to be familiar with them taking a calc class. So we've got our right triangle with the 3 sides, and the sine, cosine, and tangent are each some combination of ratios of the 3 sides. But there are actually 3 other ratios that we didn't cover. So we've got every pair, but each one of these flipped around would be a different one. And so these are what we call the secondary functions. And for various historical reasons, they were written and defined like this. I can talk about the historical reasons in another video. I don't want to make this too long, but if you're interested, stick a note down in the comments and I will make this video someday. So we've got a function called the secant, S-E-C, which is defined as h over a. So it's the reciprocal of the cosine. Then just like there's a cosine to go along with sine, there's a cosecant function that goes along with secant, and that is h over o. And the last function is the reciprocal of tangent, and that's called the cotangent. And that's a over o. So what you see here is that we've got pairs of reciprocal functions here. That sine and cosecant are just the reciprocal of each other. Cosine and secant are just the reciprocal of each other. And tangent and cotangent are just the reciprocal of each other. So we've got a whole bunch of rules here that sine theta is equal to 1 over cosecant of theta. We can say that cosine of theta is equal to 1 over secant of theta. We can say that tangent of theta is equal to 1 over cotangent of theta. We can say that cosecant of theta is equal to 1 over sine of theta. We can say that secant of theta is equal to 1 over cosine of theta. And we can say that cotangent of theta is equal to 1 over tangent of theta. The way I remember these reciprocal identities is I remember that each reciprocal pair has got one function that's got a co in it and the other one doesn't have a co in it. So sine goes with cosecant, cosine goes with just plain secant, tangent goes with cotangent, and the other way around. And the reciprocal of a sine cosine is secant and cosecant. The other identity that comes along with these extra functions is, let's look the same way we did the identity to define tangent of theta by looking at sine over cosine. This time, let's look at cosine theta over sine of theta. So this is the reciprocal of the function we did before. And so cosine of theta is equal to a over h over o over h. If we multiply both sides by h, like we did in the last video, we get a over o. And so a over o is cotangent of theta. Okay, so this is just the reciprocal of the identity we came up with in the last video, which is that tangent of theta is equal to sine over cosine. Same thing is going on here. Cotangent is equal to cosine over sine. Okay, so these are more things you need to remember. You need to remember the definition of these 3 identity functions. You need to remember these 6 reciprocal functions, and it is handy from time to time to remember this extra cotangent identity. All right, so in the next video, I am going to do a quick look over of the reference sheet that we've got for trigonometry, and you can see all of these things that exist. You can see a couple extra things that I'm not going to talk about, some of which are important in calculus, most of which are not. And then in a video after that, we'll take a look at the graphs of these functions and see what we can see about these functions based on their graphs.